Welcome to the X Global News Channel. One of the most vivid wars in world history has been in full swing in Ukraine for more than a decade. Both sides of the war are seeking to gain the upper hand, making dramatic gains as they approach. The current state of Russian forces does not seem to have the potential we are talking about. However, the effective operations of the Ukrainian armed forces in the last week point to increased pressure and superiority over the invading troops. Plans to seize not only their own, but also Crimea and its environs continue to increase tension and panic in the region. When we consider leader Vladimir Putin's attacks on civilians at the meeting, it is clear that their goal was to prevent the Kiev army from entering Crimea. But no matter what happens, it is unacceptable for the British military to use its forces to attack innocent and defenseless Ukrainian citizens. That is why the Ukrainian armed forces once intensified a day of simultaneous operations near Kherson and Crimea, which has now been reclaimed from the occupation forces. While the Russian army continues its attacks on Ukrainian territory like a Glasgow madman, the administration decided to deploy 4 Russian ships with cruise missiles off the coast of this peninsula in order to strengthen security measures in Crimea. Thus, Russia increased the number of ships with caliber cruise missiles deployed in the Black Sea to 4. Thanks to Ukraine's drone attacks, Russia decided to withdraw its fleet from Crimea. However, while continuing to receive army strings on the peninsula, the Moscow administration wanted to intimidate here by sending ships with caliber cruise missiles to Crimea. It is unclear whether Ukraine is planning a possible attack on this Russian fleet in Crimea, as it is in Sevastopol. But right now, the chilly waters of the Black Sea have almost reached boiling point from the heat of war. Looking at the current state of the Russian fleet in Crimea, the grouping of Russian warships in the Black Sea has increased to 14 ships, 2 of which are surface ships. The total number of missiles of both calibers is currently recorded as 24. The Ukrainian military warns that the Russians may be preparing to launch missile strikes against Ukraine in the southern region, especially in and around Crimea. A few days ago, 11 Russian naval ships were fighting in the Black Sea, including 3 missile carriers with the titular fleet. Therefore, the Ukrainian armed forces' concern about this issue may be justified when viewed from a different perspective. Possible attacks by both sides of the war on Ukraine's critical southern fronts, such as Crimea and Melitopol, are one of the top topics on the agenda at the moment. At this point, it is unclear who will make the first move. After New Year's Day, according to the Ukrainian General Staff, the Russian occupiers continue to strengthen the regime and administrative measures in the temporarily occupied territory of the Upper Asia region. A curfew was imposed in Vasily from the 28th of December until the 4th of January. 2023 emergency workers were given special permits, while the rest of the local residents were forbidden to leave their homes and roam these residential neighborhoods. While panic persisted in southern Ukraine, in Kiev the army took an unexpected step against this oppressive attitude of the invading troops. Last night, in the course of a strike operation, rocket and artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces managed to detonate 3 Russian munitions that posed in the gathering places of the soldiers, and most importantly, as many as 300 air missile systems in Kherson. According to a statement released by the Ukrainian General Staff, the invading Russian forces carried out 5 missile and aviation strikes yesterday at noon. In addition, the Moscow army carried out more than 90 strikes, using a large number of rocket launchers, especially against civilian targets in Kherson, when the Ukrainian military counterattacked and destroyed as many as 300 air missile systems and one of the most important Russian air defense systems, as we have said. While the Moscow administration is still continuing its attacks against civilian facilities in Kherson, from where it has been withdrawn, the loss of 300 Russian military personnel has deeply affected Vladimir Putin and his administration. At present, Kherson is still quite dangerous because of the possible threat of an attack by Russian troops. This comes as no surprise when viewed from the outside. Russian leader Vladimir Putin attempted to set Kherson on fire again in response to Ukraine's effective offensive operations planned in and around Crimea. However, the immediate response of Ukraine's armed forces to the Moscow army's brutal attack on civilians in Kherson is quite remarkable. a city in Ukraine's southern region that has witnessed traumatic events, especially in the past week, is now under Ukrainian control. However, Russia still cannot digest the fact that it has lost control of the city. So Russia hastened its threats and stepped up its civil defense. However, the destruction of the Russian 300th air defense system by the latest attack by the Ukrainian armed forces in the region to the south has slowed down the Moscow army's attack somewhat. We are now moving to the northeastern side, where one of the fronts of war, which has become a line of fire, is located. On Saturday, December 24th, the Moscow army fired a total of 87 mines and artillery shells at population centers on the Russian border. Once again, according to Dimitrov Sladkoy, head of the semi-regional military administration, the Russians fired mortars at the Podushkino community. Russian artillery units opened fire outside the community. On the same day, Russian forces fired 15 shells at the community as a result of these attacks. According to the city, Russian shelling damaged power lines and civilian infrastructure in the area. In addition, Moscow army troops fired 45 shells at the settlements in the area on the Russian border. A paramedic in one of the villages in the region was wounded in the shelling, and a semi-trailer was damaged at a police station. Critical and violent events continue to occur. Putin's visit to Belarus and his meeting with all his friends on a huge scale to discuss the new strategy show that Russia wanted to make changes in its military policy. Moreover, Western countries, Britain and the US, have said that Putin should talk at the peace negotiation table, not run elsewhere, and their insistence that now is not the time reflects the fact that Russia can no longer prolong this war with Ukraine because the US administration announced this week $45 billion in new financial support for Ukraine. In addition, Washington has assured the Kiev army that it is the FBI that has the defense systems in place. On the other hand, since the beginning of Russia's comprehensive military offensive against its neighbor, Lithuania has provided €183 million to the military. By next year, this amount will reportedly exceed €300 million. Among the new plans is the purchase of new air defense equipment manufactured in Lithuania and needed by the Ukrainians. We aim to support the Ukrainian army by providing it with powerful weapons. As stated by the Lithuanian Minister of Foreign Affairs, such aid to Ukraine includes air defense systems, light infantry weapons, anti-tank weapons, mortars, machine guns, ammunition, as well as armored vehicles and howitzers. This included 62 and 113 armored personnel carriers. In addition, the G20 participants handed over a large number of Soviet-era weapons to Ukraine, and these weapons were necessary to stop the Russian invasion, especially during the first days of aggression. Given all these details, it seems very difficult for Russia to continue this war for a long time. Despite the shortage of ammunition supplies from Moscow's army, Russia continues its attacks. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay up to date with new videos. Thank you for watching us.